Okay guys, yesterday in 5.2 we were taking the squares of Tuesday, we were taking the squares of numbers, right? If I take the square of a number, let's say 4 squared, that's the same as what? 4 times 4, which is 16. Today we are doing what we call the square root. The square root undoes the square. So what do you think the square root of 16 would be?
4.
Good, it would be 4. Okay, so we're undoing the square part. You know how subtraction is the opposite of addition? Square root is the opposite of squaring. Okay? So when we, definition of square root. The square root is one of 2 equal factors of a number. Now that's the important word here, equal. We have to have 2 numbers that are the same. So a number being multiplied by itself. Alright, now we do need to remember that square roots actually have 2 answers. We write this symbol as, we call this plus or minus. Okay? So square roots actually have 2 answers. And when we take the answer, we write plus or minus the number. Okay, so that's what this symbol means. Why do you think we write plus or minus? Okay, well let's go back to square root of 16. We said square root of 16 was what? Positive 4. So what we would write here would be plus or minus 4. Why? Let's think about it. What is 4 squared? Positive 16, right? What about negative 4 squared? Negative 4 times negative 4 gives me positive 16 also. So there's actually 2 answers here. The positive form of the number and the negative form of the number. Both of them work. Okay? So one more definition. We have what is called a perfect square. Perfect squares are what we've been working with so far. A perfect square is a number whose square roots are integers. So 1 would be considered a perfect square because the square root of 1 is 1. What else would be considered a perfect square? 5. Can we take the square root of 5? Oh, 25. Then we would say 25 is a perfect square. So you're looking at the big number. Okay, so any number that we can take the square root of, that is considered a perfect square. Alright, so what does perfect square mean? Let's look at this. Square root of 1. What's the square root of 1?
1.
Good, 1, because 1 times 1 equals 1, right? So 1 is considered a perfect square. Can I take the square root of 2? Does any number times itself give me 2? No. So is 2 considered a perfect square? No. We cannot take the square root of 2. What about square root of 3? Can we take the square root of 3? Does any number times itself equal 3? No. So 3 is also not a perfect square. What about square root of 4? What's the square root of 4? 2, because 2 times 2 is 4, correct? So 4 is a perfect square. That's what it means. So you know that table that you filled out yesterday in the homework where you were taking all the numbers and squaring them? All of those answers are considered perfect squares. Okay? So let's look at example 1. Find the square of this number. What does finding the square mean? We're just looking at the square here, not the square root, the square. So what would the square be? 5 squared. That's what it's asking for. Whenever you are asked to find the square of something, That means they want us to square the number. So what is 5 squared? 5 times 5, which is 25. Okay? You have to be able to know the difference. Okay? So then example 2 asks us to find the square root. Okay? Example 2 asks us to find the square root. So what we would write, square root of 144. So we make our square root symbol. We put 144 inside. Is 144 a perfect square? Yes. 144 is, or square root of 144 is the same as the square root of what? 12 times 12, right? Or 12 squared. Okay, so this square root and that squared are going to cancel each other out. So what's my answer? 12. Just the number that is being squared. So this is how I want you to show your work. You need to write the problem, square root of 144, which equals the square root of 12 squared. And then that square root and the square are going to cancel each other out. So we're going to be left with 12.
Our teacher didn't teach us nothing.
Okay, let's try another one. Example 3. Example 3 is still the same instructions. We are asked to find the square root of each number. So how would I write square root of 144? We draw our square root symbol, or 49, I'm sorry, I was looking at the wrong problem. And we put 49 on the inside. This symbol means that we're taking the square root. Okay? 49. 49 is what? What times itself equals 49? 7, right? So we're going to show that step, square root of 7 squared. 7 squared is the same as 7 times 7. Is everybody okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay. The reason why I want you to write 7 squared is because that square root cancels out the square because they're opposites. So then what's my answer?
7.
Whatever's left on the inside, which is 7. Example 4. We want to find the square root of 121. So we have to take the square root. So we draw the square root symbol of 121. Now what number times itself gives me 121?
11.
Good, 11. So we write 11 squared. Okay. Square root of a square that cancels each other out, so what would my answer be? 11. So all we're doing is everything that we did on Tuesday, we're just doing it backwards now. So now I'm giving you the answer, and I want to know what number we squared to get that answer. Does that make sense? 1 to 5, where are you guys feeling with this? So 1 to 5. Okay. Okay, put them down. Try example 5 on your own. I want the square root of 25. Okay, you should be working right now. Do not play with those. Okay, work on number 5, please. Who got that correct? You got it right? Excellent. Okay. Now how are you guys feeling about this? A little bit better?
I'm feeling awesome.
You're feeling awesome?
Like, not wanting to do anything.
Yeah.
Probably.
Oh yeah? When? Cool.
Really tomorrow, but I didn't go see